welcome, first of all. Thank you for
Yeah.
joining me. And we're going to be speaking about, it's going to be the eighth annual Freeze HD event, which you guys have been doing for a number of years now. And it's going to be the 22nd of October, I believe.
Yep.
And this is it's a fundraiser for Huntington's disease, which of course it's a hereditary disease passed on. There's a 50-50 chance you can get it. It mostly affects neurologically. And this is something it tends to be, it's always fatal. And currently there isn't a cure for that. And it's also something you hold quite close to your heart as well. And um, every year this event goes on to raise awareness and raise money. And I just kind of want to know what your initial involvement came about with Freeze HD.
My initial involvement came about, I think I learned about Huntington's disease in passing in biology class, just in terms of genetic diseases and how they get passed on. And because Huntington's is very sort of simple in the way that it works, you either get the gene from your affected parent or you don't, and you can't pass it on. It's very useful in teaching genetic simplicity like that. But then I really heard about it when I met Mariana Palka, your fellow Scotswoman, and she told me about it, and she told me about her father, who was in the early stages of it. He's now passed on, and that's where I kind of became involved in the Huntington's disease community as a whole. But we didn't start Freeze HD until after Mariana filmed this documentary called The Lion's Mouth Opens, where she documented her process of getting tested and finding out whether or not she had the gene. And after that experience, we were all feeling uh, we were all feeling a lot of feelings about the powerlessness against this disease at the moment. The powerlessness slash how close we've been to finding the cure for years. And so we initially, my sister-in-law, Lelia Parma, my brother's incredible wife, my brother Tyler, she came up with this idea to do this big event, and we were just going to do it one time and just kind of give Huntington's disease a big punch in the nose, and that was going to be it. And so we called in every favor we could, and then it kind of had a life of its own, and other people who were affected by Huntington's and the Huntington's community picked it up and wanted to continue the event. And now this is the eighth one, which is so wild to think about.
And
But yeah, so that's how I initially got involved.
And speaking about it a little bit there, you've mentioned you only thought it was going to be a 1 year thing. And I, of course, imagine that the original vision that you had in mind is very different to where you've ended up now. And I'm quite interested to know how this event has evolved over the years, especially with the creative decisions made into putting it together.
Well, it's interesting because there's been a through line. It has evolved. The first year when we were putting it up ourselves, Lelia did this incredible um, aerial dance. That was this very beautiful thing that she put together on a rope, and it was magical and incredible. And the element of performance has continued on. There's always music, and it's fun, and it's we want it to be a fun party. That's what we really want. We want people to come, and we want people in the Huntington's community to have a night of fun as well. When the disease itself is so devastating for families, that it's nice to just have a moment of solidarity. And the main way in which it's evolved, though, was sort of a natural progression from our little family just doing it, and when Huntington's disease is something that's in your life, it feels very rare. Not a lot of people you talk to know about it. It feels like the only family that has it, unless you go to these events, are you know people far away, no one you know. And it was pretty incredible to find out that people like Scott Porter and Kelsey Porter, who I've known for years, had it in their family. Kate Miner has it in her family. She was in my brother's acting class. And you start to realize that all of these things that, I mean, disease or not, these things that feel rare, feel like no one else can possibly understand. Um, when you start talking about it and you get a big enough platform, you actually realize that there are people already in your community who also maybe not have not been talking about it, but by sort of standing up and spreading awareness, you start to realize that your little family is bigger than you initially understood it to be. And I feel a sneeze coming. It's been a little bit. That's been the biggest sort of evolution of the event, is the family element. We've realized that one of the hard things with getting people interested in Huntington's disease is uh, it's not something that, for the most part, unless you have a series of gene repeats that gets pushed over the threshold, it's not something that will suddenly jump on your family. It's something that affects generations and generations of the same family. So in that way, the community can kind of be quite insulated and small. And the whole idea of the event now has become, now you know about it, now you're part of the family too. We're growing the number of people who know about it and understand what it is and want to help us fight it.
And does the response surprise you? Does it take you by surprise quite a lot of the time, if someone mentions a story to you?
Oh yes, I mean, a lot of the first of all, a lot of the Huntington's stories that we're getting in this generation are similar to each other in a lot of ways. Sometimes before we knew a lot about the disease or about the genetics, people didn't know. It was just like something's happening to grandpa or to dad, and we don't know what it is or that it's genetic. And in the last 20 years, the technological advancements have been so, or the medical science advancements have been so great. We've learned a lot more, and so people are starting to put the puzzle pieces together and saying, oh, actually that was Huntington's disease, and now I know that I'm at risk, and then they can decide whether or not to get tested. Yeah, which is a hugely personal decision, and without there being a definite cure-all, people may not want to know if they have it or not. It's a totally personal thing, um, but it's been incredible. The response has been incredible. The amount of people who have come up to me and said, I can't wait to come to Freeze this year. People are excited that it's in person again. And it's incredible to me that you create something with people that you care about, and it starts to have a life of its own.
And when you're creating this event, it's getting bigger and bigger every year, and it went global the last couple of years because of COVID, and it was virtual. And when you reach a milestone or hit a target, go beyond your fundraiser goal, is there ever a moment of hesitation where you're kind of like, well, where do we go from here? How are we going to top this in the following year to come?
Yes. That's always the question, is how can we grow it? And we had our biggest, most successful year right before the pandemic hit, and so the virtual events were incredible. We didn't get as much, we didn't raise as much money in those years, but on the flip side, we reached, like you said, we reached a larger audience. And so there's always kind of a trade-off. It may not be, you know it may not grow financially every year, because at some point there's a limit as to how much um, money there is in the world. So at some point things are gonna you know even out or go up and down. But we definitely want to, we try to improve everything every year. So, you know, after the whole event happens, we get together for a couple weeks and we say, what went well? What could we have done better? Oh, this was a little off with the auction. This was hard to get this thing, whatever it is. And then we try to improve it and bring it back next year so it's as good as possible. And the fact is, obviously, we want to raise as much money and awareness as possible. But even if we raise anything, you know, it's still that much money going towards the cure and these centers of excellence that HDSA builds. You know, I just read a thing that they had 20 national centers of excellence, and now they have 65. In the last 8 years, they've been able to open, you know, 45 more, 200% increase in over 200%. My math is right. So it's exciting. It's exciting to see the money being used in these incredible ways. And, you know, the more money we raise, the more we're able to do with it. But even just people coming and listening and learning and buying a ticket, you know, that ticket money goes to it. And the awareness is also a big part of it. You know, we would see when I would be with Mariana's father in public, you would see people react to him and have kind of no idea what was going on with him. And so the more that we can expose people to the realities of the disease, the more empathy people have, the more understanding people can have. And, you know, it's another little tool in their mental toolbox. When they see someone, they go, oh, I wonder if that's this, or they know how to talk about it or anything like that. They have a frame of reference.
And when you're faced with a sort of fork in the road, what what is it that helps you to overcome that? And you know, like what inspires Jason Ritter is the question here.
Oh gosh, there's a lot of things that I glean inspiration from. I think that generally my heroes that I have gotten inspiration from have really um they've really had their eye on the ball. They've really thought a lot about what they're doing and how they're influencing people, and they don't necessarily do what's popular at the time. They do what they know to be the right thing to do, and we push society forward in that way. And so I think a lot of things that inspire me when I come to a fork in the road, I think which way is going to leave the world a slightly better place at the end of the day. And that's been kind of my goal. Is, I think, you know, when I was a teenager, I grappled a lot with sort of this sort of, I don't know, how do you describe it, maybe ennui or something like that, or just angst, or I felt like I'm just eating this food that could be going to someone else, or I'm a suck on society, and I'm not adding anything. And, you know, there's some like elements of depression that go through there, but generally I try to do things that when I'm no longer here, um, uh, I haven't, people don't go, whew, glad that guy's gone. You know, I kind of hope that I made it even just a tiny bit of a better place. And, you know, we all are capable of both at all times. So you're constantly putting things on both sides of the scale. And I just, you know, when I come to those forks in the road, I try to put things on the side of the scale that make me feel like it's making people feel less alone, making people feel more taken care of, more loved, more understood, that kind of thing.
This is really a campaign. You can feel the dedication that goes into it, that you guys are making a difference. You're focusing on making a change. And so much progress has happened in the last couple of years. And a lot of that comes from what you guys are doing. And I kind of want to know how being involved with this project, how has it impacted on your life?
It's been incredible. I think for the most part, the thing that has been the most important to me has been grappling with that initial feeling of powerlessness. I'm not a scientist. I can't find the cure myself. I can't, there are a lot of things that I can't do. And so you start to shift your perspective into, well, what can I do? I can try to help the people who can make a difference. And that's been the most incredible part of it for me is I'm on the HD Buzz uh, Twitter page, and I'm getting all the latest updates on the research, uh, and it's exciting and frustrating and incredible to see all of these different things that people are trying. And even if some trial doesn't work, we now know that that doesn't work, and we've gone down that avenue, and so we just continue to grow and grow. But uh but I think the incredible thing, and something that I try to pass on to everybody who comes to these events and buys a ticket, is you buy a ticket, you show up, you donate in any way. When you read these stories about some of these trials, you can feel some level of, not ownership, but like you were a part of making this happen. You don't know exactly where your $20 went, which place it went to, but you know that it generally went to eradicating this world from Huntington's disease for good. And when we get to that day, you can say, I helped. and and I do feel like we're coming up to that day. I really do believe, um, just looking at the progress that's already been made, I believe that the next generation coming up will not have to deal with it in the same way. Already, there are drugs that help with symptoms and things like that. It's already way different than it used to be. But we're still fighting for that cure for the people who are in the middle of it or about to become symptomatic or things like that.
And I mean, you kind of touched upon it there. It is a devastating disease because, like you say, there is no cure for it. It tends to be fatal. And I suppose, like, what can you emphasize about the importance of raising awareness?
Um, I think that I think that there are lots of horrible diseases and conditions that can afflict people, um and for a lot of them, because they can affect people all over the place, cancer or AIDS or things like this. It's possible for any of us to get it anytime. Certainly some people are more susceptible to certain types of cancer and things like that, but generally, um just by virtue of the fact that we're in a global community, I know everybody knows someone who has dealt with cancer to some degree or another. Things like Huntington's, where it really will go through a family, and 3 out of 4 siblings, or I mean, I know it's 50-50, but sometimes the math, just each one is a coin flip. So it's not like, oh, if you have 4 siblings, 2 will not have it and 2 will. It could be all 4, and or 3 or 0. And so I think the thing about spreading awareness with this one is to be a voice for those communities and the families who are dealing with Huntington's every day in one way or another, may not have the energy or the emotional wherewithal to talk about it all the time. And so it helps for people who are not immediately affected by it to kind of take up the mantle and say, we're going to fight this battle for you. And that's not to say that, I mean, there are lots of people in our community who are grappling with it right now, who are deeply involved in HDSA and Freeze HD in particular, and making it all happen. But the more warriors we have for this disease, the better. And yeah, and people can be a part of helping solve this problem for good.
And just to go back to the event a little bit there, this is your first year back in person in 2 years. How
Mhm.
are we feeling about that? Are we ready to be around people? Are you ready to get dressed up? I saw you guys at the Emmys. She's looked great. But
Thank you.
are you ready for this event?
I will say that yes, I am ready. Throughout the entire COVID period of time, the whole pandemic, we've been the as about as cautious as you can possibly be, and and I will say that going through the experience of the Emmys and going going to all these parties, and people, they ask for vaccine proof, or sometimes you had to test negative, but the rules were always different. And I just, throughout that entire period, I was like, this is so great, this is so exciting, I'm definitely getting COVID. I know that I'm it's coming for me. And then to get through it and go to the other side, um and not get it helped me boost my courage and bravery, and think, right, we're not at the very beginning of the pandemic. If people are feeling sick, or they can test themselves, they can decide not to come at the last minute, and or they can come and wear a mask all night. We definitely want people to feel comfortable coming. um and there's just a lot more personal responsibility, I think, that comes into it these days. And we're very excited. We're really excited. We're also determined not to have it be any kind of you know super spreader event. But we've been doing really well. And um and and if it goes the way it's going now, I mean, we were close to having it in person last year, and then there was a surge, and so we had to really quickly kind of reevaluate the whole thing. But this year we're feeling pretty good. We know that in general, Los Angeles, a very conscientious place. We'll all protect each other as best we can, and yeah, so I'm very excited. I'm incredibly excited for the live music element of the show. I have not seen any live music since before the pandemic, so it'll be a very beautiful personal experience for me. And with Dustin and Meredith, I cannot wait to see them together. I'm such a huge fan of Trans-Siberian Orchestra that I can't even, I just think I respect them all as musicians so much, that I can't wait to see them live, see him do it.
The stars have aligned. It sounds like it's more of an event for you as a fan as well, which is great.
It is. It is. It's a big excuse. I was super excited when I found out he was doing it, and then the fact that they're doing it together, and they just had their 10-year anniversary, and their kids are going to be there singing too. It's like a big. It's really in line with the whole family is everything theme of Freeze HD.
And what are some of the other things that we can expect to see from the event this year?
Well, we have uh, two new organizers who have like come in and stepped it up, and they're going to be having performers kind of all through the night, and people on stilts, and it's going to be kind of a magical, wonderful event, and lots of incredible, great auction items, and still things that are coming in now. But it's making me more and more excited about the night. But yeah, I think the music is going to be a super exciting part of the night. And the Avalon is so beautiful. That's where we had our most successful one. It feels like an old timey night on the town. It has a very classic feel to it. And so we're excited. It's gonna be a really fun night, and we hope everyone comes out, and we hope people who can't come out go on the online auction. That's one of the other things that we learned, is how amazing it is to open up the auction to the entire globe, and people who can't come can still support in a number of ways.
And this year, you and your family specifically, you guys are going to be honored this year. How does that feel for you?
It feels nice. It was hard at first. I kind of I resisted it. We obviously none of us ever did it for anything like that. We just have been trying to raise awareness and trying to do it. And they really talked me into it. Even though it feels uncomfortable to have the attention on me. I also, especially for my sister-in-law, who's without her rallying us all that first year, that just wouldn't exist. And we would have just had that kind of pit in our stomach of what can we do. I guess we can donate to groups, but the fact that that she really came up with this, and my brother and mom and sister just kind of all came together to make this event. It feels nice. So for them, I feel happy. I feel like they should. I'm happy to be on standing alongside them, honoring them. I always feel for myself like I should be doing more. I could be, I, but that's where the team comes into play. No one can put this event on by themselves, and everyone just does their part, and then it's an incredible magical night every year.
And of course, this isn't just going to be a one night thing. It's never just been for the event and that's it over. This is something, we need to keep this conversation flowing. We need to keep trying to do everything that we can to try and get this cure out. And I guess from your perspective, what do you think can be done to keep this conversation flowing?
Um, there are a number of different ways to keep it going. You know, One way that we are able to continue to have it going is media, and interviews like this really help a lot. And Mariana's documentary, that Lucy Walker's documentary of Mariana, helped when people have a frame of reference so they can watch something. And anytime in any TV show Huntington's disease is a storyline, that can help too. So yeah, it's just a matter of a lot of times with illnesses that are as devastating as this, it's hard to talk about. um, People get uncomfortable with the reality of it. It's scary to think of a disease that is basically Alzheimer's, ALS, and Parkinson's kind of all mixed into one awful disease. At the same time, that's what inspires us to fight as hard as we do, to get the word out there, and eventually to find a cure. And we'll keep on doing these freeze HD events until we find one. And um, every year there's a study that feels this close. It's been successful in this trial, and then this trial, and then they find something that doesn't work in this trial or something like that. But it really feels like each year people buying tickets and people coming and buying cool things from the auction, your dollar could go to the scientist that pushes this over the edge. As it's like those machines where you put the quarters in and like pushes the corner forward. They're like, all these quarters are just hanging right over the edge. And we just need that one, whatever that one quarter is, that will make the waterfall come down. And so yeah, and that's all it is, basically, is keeping the conversation going and not allowing this or other things to kind of just fester in the back of people's minds, or have it be something that people feel like they can't talk about because no one will understand it, and they don't want to have to say when they're talking to someone, my family member has Huntington's and this is what it is. And it's incredible, even within the community, to have a baseline of understanding where someone can say that and you go, oh yes, I understand what that is, as opposed to walk me through the most traumatic experience of your life. I've never heard of it or anything like that. So it really it helps to kind of to draw attention to it. The fact that Woody Guthrie went through it was the first huge um growth of public knowledge about it. And for a long time people go, oh, Huntington's disease, isn't that what Woody Guthrie had? And it's like, yes. So the more stories we have of like that, the more understanding and empathy we can spread.
Absolutely. And it is really incredible to see the impact that you guys have made alone. And I mean, like I said, a lot of the progress that has been made has been a result of what you guys are doing. So thank you on behalf of all the people that you're doing this for. Thank you so much for talking with me tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure.